Hi, I'm TUXEDO Mask Darian here, and today I'm going to talk about, and this would have to be on what we talked about before. Okay, so apparently someone told me that in the manga the Sailor Starlights were all women, which yes, in the manga that's true, but I was talking about. And, well, in the funny book, or in the drawing book, yeah, that was true. But I was talking about the live drawings in a drawing film, you know, that was not true. Now, so something happened, or at least it happened, it's going to happen tomorrow. It would be at least, how many years ago was that? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 years ago. Now, 4 years ago, there was a thing on YouTube known as webcam capture or web shooter take or whatever you want to call it. Now, okay. That's not even the grounds of this film. I just shift on and talk about something. Oh, here we go. Why I don't know what we're talking about here. Alright. Yeah, why don't we just talk about it? It's our YouTube fairway, and as long as we're in good standing with YouTube, and I hope the law probably, then what we talk about is good. Alright. So, getting back to the whole thing with homosexuality, yeah, that being that Greek borrowed word, learned word. Now, when I told you that, back in the day, how in Sailor Moon you had some South Hoods who were that way. I mean, first you had you had Zoisite and Quinfight if you would watch all the other works of Sailor Moon. But in DIC 1, Zoisite became a female. Now, I know a lot of folks would have said, well, why was that done? Well, back then, during that time, there was a belief, it still goes around this day, there was a belief, and it's still around this day, but not as it once was. But there was a belief that if you had selfhoods who were that way, they were, I don't know, they were benders of some kind, or whatever you want to call them. If there had any selfhood that was that way, it was considered bad. You couldn't do it on a farseer. You couldn't do it in films. And you couldn't, they just thought it was wrong. Today, it's not like that anymore. Well, you have selfhoods who are that way. And no one truly cares anymore. I mean, people still care. But what I mean to say, it's not a big deal anymore. More folks are more trusting of it. And there's more understanding of it. But back then, DIC didn't think that DIC didn't want to be put in a bind with anyone if someone did get mad over it. So that's why DIC had to make Zoisite, who was a man, on all the other forms, all the other shapes of Sailor Moon, and made her into a woman. Then, that was it. DIC really didn't have to deal with that anymore. Cloverway had to deal with it next when it came to Sailor Uranus and Sailor Neptune. Now, keep in mind, once again, they didn't do anything wrong. But once again, this was still during that lifetime, where it was still thought to be wrong. It was not up to where we are now, where it's all right. Well, it was always all right, but back then, a lot of folks believed it wasn't all right. And they became near kin. Now, I know a lot of folks have seeked wrong, or had seeded that. A lot of folks have said that was wrong. But I guess Cloverway had to come up with some grounds to why they were close to each other. But everyone knew what they were. By that point, I'm sure a lot of folks knew what they were. But it was still during that time where some folks thought it was wrong to do so. Now, a lot of folks believe, now it depends on where you read at, because apparently in the Drawlin book, Fisheye was a cross-dresser, which was not true in the live drawing or the Drawlin film. Fisheye was always a female. And I know someone's going to say, oh, but in the Drawlin book, yeah, well, we're not talking about the Drawlin book here. We're talking about the live drawing, the Drawlin film, or the Drawlin show. You know, the live drawings, or the Drawlin film, or the Drawlin show. You know, in the Drawlin show, Fisheye was a female. So there wasn't nothing Cloverway had to do with that. Now, the hang-up happened once you got to Sailor Stars. Because once you got from Sailor Stars, you had to deal with the Dustin, Jordan, Julian hang-up from Sailor Star Fan Dub. That was their name from that. From Sailor Stars Fan Dub, or whatever you want to call it. So, where they were men who, when they shape-shifted, they became female. They became women. And I know a lot of folks like to say, oh, well, in the Drawlin book. Yeah, but once again, we're not talking about the Drawlin book here. We're talking about the Drawlin film, the Drawlin show, the live drawings here. We're not talking about the Drawlin book. So you can't bring the Drawlin book up and say that that was it. We're not talking about the Drawlin book. We're talking about the live drawings, the Drawlin show, or the Drawlin film. All right. So once again, Cloverway lost the right to it. Toei wasn't putting it out to be worked with. And around the same time that was going on, Naoko Takiguchi had once didn't like how Toei went by doing Sailor Stars. And keep in mind, Sailor Stars was done in 1995. So by the time DIC or Cloverway or 4Kids or anyone else could have gotten around to work on it, it was basically taken off the leaner. And it was put in lockup. But then again, this isn't about that. How could Cloverway or 4Kids or DIC or whoever got the rights, how would they handle the Sailor Starlights? What would they say? How could they, at that point, what could they say? How could they tell folks these are men, and how could they tell them when that they shape-shift into women when they're fighting? So no one would know. You know, there was really no way they could, tell it. It wasn't like with Zoisite where you could just, shift her into a woman and you're done. It wasn't like with Sailor Uranus and Sailor Neptune where you can make them near kin and you could be done. With the Sailor Starlights, Sailor Star Healer, Sailor Star Maker, and Sailor Star Fighter, you couldn't just shift one thing on them and then be done. There's a whole bunch of things one would have to shift on them. So then I guess that's when either Cloverway or 4Kids or whoever was going to work on it just said, we can't work with it. And then there was the whole hang-up, the whole fight between Naoko Takiguchi and Toei over how Toei did the Sailor Moon and how they didn't do it the way it was done in the drawing books and a bunch of other things. And it was basically locked up between both sides, and neither side but neither side worked with each other until at least around 2012 layout. Around that time, that's when all the Sailor Moon stuff came back. Now, a lot of folks are going to say, oh, but Viz, yeah, well, keep in mind here, now it's okay. I mean, now it's all right. More folks have an understanding of it. More folks are trusting of it. And more folks know, oh, you're not doing anything wrong by being that way. And more folks now believe that it's all right if someone on the Farsi or in a film or a play is like that, as long as they're not doing anything wrong. And no one is. But this was during a time where it was thought to be wrong, and if you had anyone was like that, now I know that some folks out there could have still seeked wrong with it. Some folks could have still somehow, some way overlooked it. Someone, some way could have said, hold on here, DIC. You're not fooling anyone. We know Zoisite was a man before he made him a woman, and Sarah Uranus and Sailor Neptune are near kin, but they were lovers, and you near kinned them. Yeah, I know, probably wasn't a thing, but you could see back then they had to do something, because they didn't want to get themselves in a hang-up, because at this time, during that time, it was thought to be, not if it was unlawful, but it was thought to be wrong. Now, more folks out there are more trusting of it. There's a more understanding of it. And, it is what it is. So, be grateful now that you can see it that way and and be grateful that now you be grateful about how folks now has a new understanding and a new trusting of it. But back then, it wasn't that true. And there still are some folks out there that still think it's wrong. And still folks that still think that it shouldn't be done. But not as much as there once was. So, I can't tell you why it was in it. I just know it was in it. And I was just telling you the shifts that were made during that time. I'm TUXEDO Masterian. Hope you like this film.